Good evening, viewers, and welcome to the Art with World. I am your host, WAHEED. Today's program is about Bapsi Sidhwa, who left this world 25th of December 2024. She was one of the finest novelists of Pakistan writing in English language. And to discuss about her works and novels, we have guests today, Dr. Safir AWAN and Dr. SARA Ali. Dr. Safir is a translator, poet and academician. Currently he is working as Vice Rector, Namal University, Islamabad. Dr. SARA is Assistant Professor in English Department, Quaid-e-Azam University, Islamabad. Before we start our discussion, there is a short report on Bapsi Sidhwa. Please watch it.
Bapsi Sidhwa was a Pakistani novelist who wrote in English language. She was born on 11th of August 1938 in Karachi. She was born to Parsi Zoroastrian parents, Peshotan and Tehmina Bhandra in Karachi. Roughly 3 months after her birth, she moved with her family to Lahore, Punjab province. Sidhwa grew up having to live through distressing events during the partition, producing experiences that would shape her writing in the future. The partition experience in particular is mirrored in her novel Cracking India. Sidhwa received her BA from Quaid College for Women University in Lahore, Pakistan, year 1957. After attending a fellowship at Harvard University, Sidhwa started her first job teaching creative writing at Columbia University to graduate students. Sidhwa left Columbia after one academic term and started living in Houston, teaching at this University of St. Thomas before eventually teaching at Rice University's School of Continuing Studies. Sidhwa also taught at the University of Houston, Mount Holyoke College and Brandeis University. Bapsi Sidhwa's two novels, Ice Candyman and Water, a novel served as a basis for Mehta's 1998 film Earth and 2005 film Water. She was awarded Pakistan's highest award, Sitara Imtiaz, in 1991. The city of Lahore, Pakistan, where she was brought up, is central to her four novels. The Bride, year 1982. The Crow Eaters, year 1978. Cracking India, 1991, originally published as Ice Candyman. An American Brat, year 1993. Her other writings include Their Language of Love, 2013. The City of Sin and Splendor, Writings on Lahore, 2006. Water, a novel, 2006. Bapsi Sidhwa, Omnibus, year 2001. Sidhwa died in Houston, Texas on 25th of December 2024 at the age of 86.
I would like to ask you about significance of Bapsi Sidhwa in Pakistan literature and the novels who are writing in English.
Thank you very much. First of all, I should express my gratitude to you, to your program and PTV for holding this important program about one of the most significant writers of Pakistan. Especially since her demise, it's pertinent that we should sit together and we should inform particularly our new generation about the contributions of Bapsi Sidhwa in Pakistani literature in English. Bapsi Sidhwa is and she will remain as one of the most potent voices in post-independence literature in Pakistan, and among so many other Anglophone writers. I believe that Sidhwa is the one who first of all brought Pakistani writings in English into the global limelight, and she put Pakistani narrative, Pakistani literary narrative and other narratives also through her literary writings on the global map. Of course, before her, there were writers who transitioned from the pre-independence United India to post-independence Pakistan, such as Ahmad Ali and others also. But she, you may say, was the first one who, even if she was born in the United India in 1938.
But she was born in Karachi.
Yeah. But she was raised in Lahore.
Of course.
And therefore, she, I believe, is the first indigenous voice who wrote about Pakistani literature, culture, Punjabi sensibility also is quite visible in her novels. And at the same time, if we look at some of her writings, then she is the one who for the first time, even on the global scale, was able to write about the Parsi community.
Yeah.
According to herself, when she introduced herself in response to an interviewer, she says that 3 Ps have been important as far as her diverse multiple identities are concerned, that she has been a Parsi, Punjabi, Pakistani.
Great.
And I think that her writings also are a beautiful blend of all of these various identities.
Okay. Dr. Sara, you have also written, I guess your dissertation was about her Bapsi Sidhwa. So the same question I would like to ask you.
So for a lot of us, the students of literature in Pakistan, literary critics and academics, Bapsi Sidhwa in one way or another was the entry point to Pakistani Anglophone literature. I did my bachelor's thesis on her, I've written research papers on her, and so many other people around me in one way or another started their research with Bapsi Sidhwa. And why her work is so important and relevant even today is because she started writing in 1970s when not a lot of people were writing in English. She, as Dr. Safir has already mentioned, she was a Parsi woman, and as a young girl who was alienated because she was contracted with polio, the kind of lifestyle she had and the kind of observation she had, and being a Parsi, the kind of non-political perspective she brought to her stories is so important. And two of her novels, and she herself has said it, are literary landmarks for Pakistani English literature. The Crow Eaters, its significance, and obviously Cracking India, because it was one of the very first novels about partition in English.
Yeah. Cracking India was perhaps first published as Ice Candy Man.
Ice Candy Man, yes.
Okay. So what inspired you to do thesis on her?
So when I moved to Lahore, I did not like that city a lot, and because I was not used to the hustle and bustle. And I remember when I was studying at Canade, one of my teachers actually asked me to read The Pakistani Bride. Okay. And the first few chapters kind of introduce you to the life of Lahore. And there were passages in the novel which made me fall in love with that city. And so I often tell people I love Lahore, and I love it because of Bapsi Sidhwa.
Dr. Safir, coming back to you, can we discuss main themes about which she wrote about and which are reflected in her novels? Many people think that she introduced very new sensibility to readers who were, first generation independent after 47. She belonged to first generation writer of which started writing after independence of Pakistan. So mainly, what are the main themes she wrote about? You would like to?
Yeah, I think you can approach this question from multiple perspectives.
Yeah.
You can discuss it chronologically because there is a certain narrative development and ideological development also in Sidhwa's work, starting in the 1980s to the late 1990s and onwards. If you look at her first work, that was The Bride, which she wrote first, but the first novel that she actually published, that was The Crow Eaters. I think there was also an advice from some publisher that first you must write about something which is more new for the world, about particularly her introducing her community, the Parsis, to the world. And I think that advice went very well because that novel became an instant hit, a publishing hit also, and people liked it a lot. And in that novel, she writes about this Parsi family, Fridun Jangalwala and her aptly named wife Putli, and so on. So there, she was also criticized even by her own community for exposing some of their eccentricities and idiosyncrasies in that novel, because Parsis having a very distinct kind of culture in the diverse cultures of the subcontinent. They have those cultural peculiarities. So she has highlighted those peculiarities in that narrative through this very robust character, by using different literary techniques ranging from the farce and the fantasy to humor, and very, a hard kind of Punjabi humor is there, and also this magical realism technique. So in this regard, some people say that
used that technique?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
So she was the one who adopted this technique in that novel.
Okay.
And then later on, of course, The Bride is often dubbed as a very feminist novel, and rightly so. And it's the story of, again, though it starts in the backdrop of the partition, but later on it quickly switches to the post-partition developments in Pakistan, and it's the story of a girl who is married off to a man who lives in the mountains, and she had been transported from the city to the mountains, and where she fails to adjust herself, and then she runs away and so on. So it's a very complex tale, because it is also at the same time parallel with another storyline in the plot, and that is the story of Carol, if I can recall correctly, who is an American, I think, a white woman married to a Pakistani businessman, and both of them, they run away from their marriages. But in my opinion, Sidhwa's great contribution will always remain her book Ice Candy Man, later on in America published as Cracking India, and then The American Brat and so on. But this book in particular, The Ice Candy Man, since it is about one of the most contentious issues and themes in literature, in politics, whether it is textual or actual, this theme has been taken up, as we know, by numerous writers from Pakistan, from India, from Bangladesh, diaspora writers, and a lot of literature is about this motif. But I have read a number of them. Khushwant Singh's Train to Pakistan, for example, and Alok Balla's collection of short stories, and so many collections. But among all of these various narratives of the partition, I can say with utmost honesty and sincerity that Sidhwa's novel is the most balanced account about the idea and theme of the partition, and she was able to approach this divisive and contentious theme from a very humanistic point of view. And there are a number of reasons. We can discuss about them in detail, that she has the advantage of distancing herself from the communal politics that was raging at that time, before and after and during the partition. So being a Parsi, not a Hindu, not a Sikh, not a Muslim, being a Parsi, she was able to approach this theme in the most humanistic fashion.
Dr. Safi just mentioned about her novel, The Bride, and he says that from that novel she was considered as a feminist writer. What's your take on that?
Yes, she brought up issues related to women, and her portrayal of Zaitoon in the Pakistani Bride is beautiful and in contrast with Carol, as he mentioned. But I genuinely feel, if you pay close attention to her writing, as Dr. Safir also mentioned, she writes all her stories with a lot of empathy towards all the characters.
Okay.
It's not only the female characters, the male characters too. I think I will credit, because I've written my thesis on masculinities, and I've especially mentioned her work. Because even when she was writing about Kohistani men, not a lot of people know about Kohistani culture, because they're so alienated and so remote in time and space, not in connection with the rest of the Pakistan. And their cultures, especially their code of honor, and the underprivileged circumstances they experience and live with, and the hatred they have. All of that has been explored so beautifully while establishing the masculinity of Sakhi, Zaitoon's husband. And I felt that she humanized that very, otherwise people would have considered him a very negative character. She humanized his struggle. And if you notice all her works, what you will notice is that not all of the men are in the position of power, and they're constantly in a power struggle with each other too. So if you look at the Crow Eaters, Freddie is constantly in a power structure with Billy. On the other hand, if you look at Ice Candy Man, the interesting thing is whatever happens to Aya happens to her because of the power struggle between the Ice Candy Man and the Monsieur. So men are constantly, and whatever they are experiencing is explored in a way where you understand that they are vulnerable too. So all these characters are written with a lot of empathy. I know we can say that a very distinctive feature of all her writing is that the women survive. And if you must have heard her interviews, and she has mentioned several times that when she was honeymooning and in Karakoram highways, she was told the story of a woman, a Punjabi woman who was married into the tribemen's community, and she was killed when she tried to run away. And Sidhwa felt that she had to tell this story, and she decided that in her story, this woman will survive. And the same thing happened in Water. Chuya survives, and Aya also survives, and Lenny survives. So it's important to acknowledge that yes, she writes about women who face precarious situations, but they survive. But the men also, they are so human that it's commendable the way she approaches gender.
Yeah, I agree with you, because as a novelist, one doesn't have to be judgmental, and one doesn't have to say that he or she belongs to certain ideology, be it feminism or whatever. They have to portray the characters as they are, as they appear, and as their lives are. So I think I agree with you. She actually talked about gender relations maybe, and maybe she, as it is said in most of reviews about her novels, that she wrote about the lives of the fallen persons, communities, social groups. And of course, women in many ways have been disadvantaged in our societies, and she chose their lives, but that was not a purpose to, to communicate certain ideology, but the lives of people as
But
they are.
overall, if we look at the themes of her writing, you will realize that she always wrote about the alienated, the ignored. Because even if you look at the Ice Candy Man, she has actually written about the people in the servitude, the cook, the ayah, the gardener, people we often ignore, and how they experience partition, and their time together, and how they listen to each other, and how their identities were acknowledged, which are not acknowledged in other circumstances. Even Water is about widows in an ashram. And Crow Eaters in itself, Parsi community, is often invisible in Pakistan. So all her writing is about, she's bringing light towards people who are often ignored.
Would you like to say something on the same issue?
Since we are discussing the major themes and her creative concerns, therefore I would like to underscore her most important and most potent theme, and that is of partition. I mean, so many people have talked about Sidhwa, placing her work within the feminist framework, which is of course so visible and so obvious. But many people, I think, haven't appreciated her approach towards this very important fact of the partition of India, whose historical burden of hatred both the countries we are carrying. And therefore, through her creative intervention and through the cast of characters in Ice Candy Man, she has developed a narrative which caters to the sensibilities of all the communities in the subcontinent. And I think her novel is an invitation to bury the hatchet and to leave that historical hatred and come to terms with the present, our present realities. Because there was a time when the same communities, the same people, irrespective of their religious affiliations and their ethnicities, they were able to, live in mutual, peaceful existence. In this regard, as Sara has said, the Aya's character, Shanta Bibi, her character is the linchpin of that communal harmony that existed before the partition. And she is the one who is the center of attention for different men who are Muslims, who are Parsis, who are Sikhs and Christians. All of them, worship her as a goddess of unity and a goddess of peace and harmony. So when she is violated, I mean, this metaphor you can further extend, that when she is violated by the mob under the leadership of the Ice Candy Man, then that is the point and that is the time in the novel and in the society and in the subcontinent when, things fall apart.
Yes.
And she, of course, survives. Of course, she survives and she is sent to, but her sending to Amritsar across the border after the partition, when she is recovered from the Hira Mandi and she is sent there to her unknown, relatives. We are not sure whether there are relatives there waiting for her, or she is just one. She will, just reach in the camp for the fallen women, the same camp which exists in Lahore for the Muslim women who were violated by the Hindus and the Sikhs. So we don't know about her actual fate in the text, but there is a message again at the end of the book when this Ice Candy Man, who actually commits this heinous crime against her as a symbol of unity and harmony. So this is a kind of message by Sidhwa that for people and for cultures with a common history of thousands of years, such borders they don't mean much, and still there is possibility for living in peace with each other.
It's also said that Bapsi Sidhwa helped decolonize the minds of the subcontinent in her novels.
Yeah, I mean,
how do you place her in our post-colonial literature? And,
yeah, I would not like to place her within the post-colonial framework for two reasons. I have an old thesis since early 2000, and that is the reason perhaps that Pakistani writers, Pakistan's cultural production, if you look at it in a wholesome way, you will feel that they do not have that kind of framing of the colonial experience, and they do not have this kind of post-colonial aura and themes which we see even in such societies as Kenya, as Algeria, as Nigeria, Mozambique, and so on, India even. So since I don't believe that we are a post-colonial society, therefore our writers, whether they have been writing in Urdu or in English, they could not write about those themes that are the common concerns of many post-colonial writers in different parts of the world. However, I put Sidhwa's work in what is dubbed as the post-independence voices, the post-independence writers, who, of course, look at the experience of colonization and independence from the colonial apparatus from a different perspective. Because we, India and Pakistan, we were in a very strange kind of situation. That on the one hand, we were seeking independence from the colonizers, the British, and on the other hand, we were seeking independence from each other also.
yeah.
So that has complicated our situation so much. And that is why Sidhwa once again has approached this theme too in her work, and that does not make her a post-colonial writer. For example, all of these independence struggle leaders, whether Hindus or Sikhs or Muslims, when she talks about them, then she does not favor anyone over the other. I mean, she has good words, bad words, neutral words, and loaded words for all of them.
Okay.
But at the same time, I must, say one thing at least, that this her stance on partition is very praiseworthy because she puts the blame of partition not on the Muslims or the Qaeda-Azam, but on the Hindus and the Hindu leaders, the Nehru and Patel and Gandhi even to some extent, because it was because of them that Pakistan, Jinnah was, forced to reject the cabinet mission proposals and all that. So Sidhwa even has intertextualized this cabinet mission proposals. She talks about that. So in this way, partition happened, but I don't feel that it's strictly a post-colonial text.
Okay. Would you like to add something?
Bapsi Sidhwa was not a preacher, or she wasn't even focused on educating people or changing their perception. She was a storyteller.
Okay.
She enjoyed the process of storytelling. She added flavors, she added drama, and that's how I will remember her.
Okay, I understand. And how you would place her in Pakistani literature or South Asian literature or global literature?
I think even if we don't try to look at her as a Pakistani writer, what
No, we would like to.
you want to. So she is the pioneer for a lot of us. We look at her as the pioneer, and before Muhammad Hanif or Mohsin Hamid became popular, Kamla Shamsi became popular, the person who was writing and who was loved as a writer for her humor, for her charm, was Bapsi Sidhwa. And as I said before, a lot of us have come in contact with Pakistani English literature through her. And we all, there are so many writers, people say, write about sensational topics and get limelight. But no one actually says this about Bapsi Sidhwa. So there has always been merit to her writing, and that is why she as a Pakistani writer, obviously she has brought us so much pride. But even if you look at her in a global context, she has a name of her own, a position of her own.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Safi, if you have to add something.
I mean, continuing with this strain of various themes and her place in world literature, I believe she has a very secure place in world literature with reference to Pakistani writings in English. Her contribution will always be remembered because it's an immense contribution. I mean, I would like to raise another debate about her film script, basically later turned into a novel, that is Water. And she worked closely with Deepa Mehta, the Indian-Canadian director, producer of films. And she wrote that script for her film about an extremely sensitive issue about the state of widows in Hinduism and in India in general. And that book again has been able to, and including the film, to create great awareness about this horrendous practice of reducing and forcing, in fact, young Hindu widows to non-entities, to nothingness, and to send them to ashrams where they had to live long life in utter poverty, and sometimes they are forced to even prostitution. So she, I mean, when they were working on this, because Mehta has made 3 films about these issues. The first one was Earth 1947, that is based on Ice Candy Man, and the second one was this Fire, and third was Water. So 3 elements, she has kind of taken up and named those various very important films on these themes. So water, when they were trying to make the film in India, there were protests against them, and they were forced to leave India. The team, Deepa Mehta, and then they selected
Sri Lanka, I guess.
Sri Lanka, yeah, one small river that is, I think, represented in the film as Ganges, perhaps. So that is not actually Ganges in the film. That is a Sri Lankan small river.
Okay.
So this film later on also, and her book when it was published as a novel also, it highlights an important practice which reduces women and forces them to live in a life which they do not like. And since this practice has religious and ideological moorings and foundations, therefore it was more sensitive also. I mean, perhaps developing from Sati, when Sati became more during the British time, even it was banned, but later on they took up this new practice, which is a kind of Sati, because in Sati they are killed with the dead husband's body, but here after the death of the husband, the women are forced to leave the society and live as ascetics in ashrams. So Sidhwa was that kind of writer who not only highlighted, for example, the problems in the Pakistani and Muslim societies about, and particularly Muslim women, and the way they are oppressed, but also she was able to write so, with such force about the Indian women too.
You've also seen, you're just telling you have watched these films. So
Yeah.
how are these films?
The interesting thing is that Water's script was written by Anurag Kashyap. Anurag Kashyap is intense and dark in his representation. So when Sidhwa was asked to write, to novelize Water, she was, reluctant in the beginning because Kashyap has a very different writing style and it was intense topic otherwise also. But when you read the novel after watching the movie, because I watched the movie first and then I read the novel, movie is, it makes you so uncomfortable. That was the aim, I guess, to make us uncomfortable, to make us question what was happening. But the novel, it's written with such empathy and understanding, and there is humor in horrifying situations. For example, when Chuhia is brought to the ashram, and she wants her family to take her back, and she's asking people questions, and it's really sad, but there is lightness and humor in those pages of the novel, and that is what Bapsi Sidhwa actually is. Like, she tells us stories which impact us, but there's lightness to it. So you can absorb it better and you can react better to those things.
Okay.
And that was the difference between the movie and the novel for me. And the same goes for Earth. Earth, the movie is if you look at the way they use the lighting, and especially the way they depicted the whole partition violence, it's quite different. In the novel, we don't really get to see what happens to Aya. But in the movie, you understand what is happening to Aya, and that is scary. So, impactful movies and novels both, but novels leave a different kind of impact. You think about these things later. That's the success
Yes.
of Bapsi Sidhwa.
Yeah.
In other element which is almost in all four of her novels, and that is Lahore, the city of Lahore. I think it's localism in all of her novels. Lahore appears most of the times.
Apart from water.
You were telling you got in love with Lahore after reading Bapsi Sidhwa.
Yeah.
So just tell us about how Lahore appears in her novels,
Yes.
and how you got impressions of Lahore.
Whenever she's writing a story, she contextualizes it. But when she was writing about Kohistan, the way she wrote about the mountains, you wanted to go and have a view. You wanted to see how those mountains looked. The same is the thing with Lahore when she writes about Lahore. And the best thing is, apart from the food, the poetry, the gardens, she has captured the essence of Lahore. That is the inviting nature of Lahore. When you come to Lahore, you feel like you are at home. And she has captured it in all her writings, and also her anthology, in which she has brought attention to the positives, the food, obviously the poetry, the tea culture where you sit together for hours, you talk about things, and the love for socialization in Lahoris and everything.
Okay. Would you like to read her passage now?
Okay, it's Qasim, who, a Kohistani man who has just come to Lahore after partition, and he's getting used to the city. And this is how he perceives Lahore as a city. Lahore, the ancient whore, the handmaiden of dimly remembered Hindu kings, the courtesan of Mughal emperors, bedecked and bejeweled, savage by marauding Sikh hordes, healed by the caressing hands of her British lovers. A little shoddy, as Qasim saw her, like an attractive but aging concubine, ready to bestow surprising delights on those who care to court her, and proudly displaying royal gifts. And if you look at it, the architecture, they are all gifts, either from the Mughal or from the Britishers. And Lahore, as soon as you enter Lahore, Lahore actually is like showing you, like, look at me, I have this, I have that. And the way Sidhwa captured it is so intriguing and beautiful.
Right. Dr. Safi, there are two other themes, that is identity and belonging, which are reflected in her works. So, what are your comments?
Yeah,
on
Sidhwa has encapsulated her experience when she herself finally immigrated to the United States, and there she wrote this novel, An American Brat.
Okay.
So it's about, I think her name is Feroza.
Yes, Feroza.
Yeah. So it's about her development and the way, I mean, she is trying to come to terms with and grapple with the traditional family values and the new value system in the American multicultural society. So these, I mean, like so many other works, but again, what I mean, I would like to give credit to Sidhwa that long before some other writers, one of them, for example, Rohinton Mistry, another Parsi writer.
He's a great writer. Fine Balance is, I think, one of
the finest
novels about the subcontinent.
Yes, yes. But my point is this, that even before Rohinton went on to live in Canada and started writing about these issues, Sidhwa was able to highlight the issues of belonging and home and so on. Because in all modern societies, whether there are local migration within the country or whether there are intercontinental migrations, we see that people always remain kind of distant from the host society, and gradually they come to terms with and with their new social reality and cultural reality. When I was reading that novel, I was remembering some other writers and their quotations. For example, some people say about home and belonging and identity that home is where the heart is. This is the traditional view. Home is where the heart is. This is the romantic view of belonging. But in the postmodern sense, we say that home is where your clothes are. Wherever you live and wherever you are carrying your clothes, that is your home and nothing else. So this is a kind of modernist and postmodernist approach to this to this issue. But I also remember here Marquez, who I think in 100 Years of Solitude somewhere says that do not call a land your own until you have your dead buried in it. So it means that your home is where your dead are buried. So I mean, these are different approaches, and Sidhwa, one of the most perceptive writers of human psyche and culture, she has been able to write about this issue too, in particularly an American brand.
You also kind of wove her stories, mixing personal experiences,
With cultural
political
history,
happenings,
Yeah.
traumas,
Mm.
and in a very, artistic way. Her craft was so beautiful. She really successfully managed to deal with all these issues in
Yeah.
her novels.
Yes, of course. I mean, all great writings, they are, crafted with the help of, or the mixing of the personal and the political, the cultural and the fantastic sometimes. And Sidhwa has been able to, narrativize her personal as well as her communal experiences, because she belonged to a very unique community, that is Parsis. Therefore, she has showcased their culture and their existence in Pakistan and in the subcontinent.
Sarah, what's your favorite novel of Bapsi Sidhwa?
Cracking India. And
why?
obviously I enjoyed reading The Crow Eaters too. Like it's hilarious. It's about the life of people we usually ignore. It's a different perspective because of a child who is not aware of why the partition is happening, and she's asking questions, and she's experiencing partition, and she's angry, but she does not know who to blame. And then her chemistry, her relationship with Aya, and then Aya's personality and Ice Candy Man's personality and his obsession with her and all of these things. There's so many nuances to the storytelling here that it's overall it's a very thrilling read. So that's why I will say that this is one novel that when someone asks me what should I read from Pakistani Anglophone literature, there are few novels I will say you should read it, and it's one of those.
And yours, Dr. Safi?
The same. I mean, I believe that if Sidhwa had not written any other novel, and if she had written only just one novel, she would always be remembered for Ice Candy Man or Cracking India.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have been teaching Bapsi Sidhwa as well in your university, I guess.
Yes, actually, in 1999, when I went to a local university, there we introduced Pakistani writings in English. Yeah, and Sidhwa was part of that. I taught many Pakistani writings.
You did your undergrad dissertation, I guess.
On Bapsi Sidhwa. Yeah.
And what inspired you to do that at that time?
There's this passage in The Pakistani Bride where Carol compares Zaitoon's, she escapes, and for her it's surprising because she was this lonely 16-year-old girl who ran away from a place she didn't know about, and then she survived in those mountains for several days. So Carol is thinking about the incident. She refers to Iqbal's concept of khudi, and she said Zaitoon experienced khudi, and to me that was the most the feminist in me at that point. I was really young and naive at that time, and in me was like excited, and I wanted to explore that theme further and read about Iqbal's philosophy more, and being able to analyze Zaitoon's life through those lens. So that's why I got into it.
Dr. we have referred, we have discussed about her writings about partition, and we have compared her with other writers like Khushwant Singh's Train to Pakistan. But there were many other writings on partition which were written in Urdu text as well. One of the greatest writers, Sajan Manto, wrote about that.
Yeah.
And all other main writers of Urdu language, they wrote about partition experience.
Actually,
how do you compare these two? I mean, Bapsi Sidhwa vis-a-vis other Urdu writers?
Manto, of course, wrote very powerful narratives about the partition. But at the same time, I would like to refer to, Udas Nasle by Abdullah Hussain and, Aaq Ka Darja. Aaq Ka Darja actually does not, intertextualizes the partition.
Yeah, that is at the end of the novel that partition happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before that, there are other things.
Yeah, he was too edgy about writing about partition because she wrote 1947, and then she skipped the whole Kuratullah and Haider because maybe it was too painful. I mean, some people have interpreted it like it was too painful to write about that. But Mustansar Hussain Tarar has written this epic of of a novel that is Khasukha Shak Zamane.
Yeah.
A good part of it about all those developments before partition and then after partition, what has been happening in these areas of Punjab and how people have been living in harmony. So that is also Khasukha Shak Zamane, since it's a thick novel. Therefore, a good part of it is about those developments.
Okay.
And there are characters, I mean Sikh characters, Muslim characters, and Jats who were, converts from Sikhism to Islam and so on. So all of that historical context has been developed by Tarar in that novel.
Anything else you would like to say about Bapsi Sidhwa, because program is coming to its close?
It's very important to understand that she had this spirit in which she accepted things as they were, and that's a very Parsi trait, I think.
Okay.
And she wanted to make the best of those things, and I think this is in itself a beautiful quality.
Okay.
And obviously, I remember her one interview in which the interviewer asked her, what is the one thing you don't like about people? And she said, when people take themselves too seriously and they don't have the ability to laugh at themselves.
Okay.
So that was her personality, and that is what I want people to remember her as someone who could laugh at herself, who can look at her own flaws, and who can look at others with empathy and accept others.
Great.
Because that's what we need in the world today.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Sara, Dr. Safi, for being with us today. It was wonderful talking to both of you.
Thank you so much.
So viewers, thank you very much for watching us. See you next Sunday, same time.